So let's talk for a second, though, about the person who takes, in a sense, the most radical action to begin with, who is Viola.
Yeah.
Who lands on the seacoast in a place that she doesn't know, although she knows the name of the ruler there, Duke Orsino.
Yeah.
And she's a single, lone female. And what does she do?
She decides, she at first thinks that she would like to, she hears about Olivia's loss, and hears that Olivia has suffered the loss of a father and a brother, and Viola's first impulse is to go serve that lady. Interesting, too, just as a side note, the play is filled with, the play is essentially about servants. There are the Duke Orsino and the Countess Olivia are the two figures in the play who are not servants. Otherwise, and Sir Toby, yes, sorry, and Fabian and Andrew, sorry. I mean, they're all
Sir Toby really was the only other member of the aristocracy.
Yeah, but there's an fascinating study of what it is to be in service to someone, whether it's for payment or for love, or and how sometimes those two things bleed into each other. We did a lot of reading as we were just to try to separate out our idea, a lot of it learned from like Downton Abbey about what servants are, versus a time where service was, where people would go to court to be in service to somebody as a way of progressing their own life. So Viola, who clearly comes from a very impressive family in Messaline, her country, because we hear that her father, Sebastian of Messaline, was a very important man. She decides that she wants to go in service to Olivia, and then hears that Olivia is not seeing anybody. So Viola decides instead she's going to present herself as an eunuch in service to the Duke Orsino. And what's also very fascinating about the play is that there is no reason given. She alludes to the idea that this disguise may haply serve the form of her intent, I think she says. And so the play begins with a woman taking a very personal and radical decision that is never fully explained. Of course, Elizabethan time, you could argue or you could pursue the idea that a woman couldn't be safe on her own, but it's harder for us to, we'd have to, that's something that we could possibly understand, but we don't necessarily feel emotionally as an audience today. And in some ways, certainly what's more interesting, I think, in terms of generally the mysteries in the play is Viola has a very personal reason for doing that we never know, and the play shows us Viola living out in many ways the challenges of having made this decision in a world that then becomes increasingly determined to see her only as this boy that she's disguised herself. Fascinatingly, if you read the play, you know in the first scene that her name is Viola. If you're just hearing the play, as Shakespeare's audiences would have done, the name Viola isn't spoken until the last scene of the play, when Viola finally gets to say, "I am Viola," after a whole community of people has come at her and assigned all these wrongs that she's committed them and abandoned loves that she's gotten herself caught up in. And so you see this woman in a really stressful situation. And finally she gets to take off this disguise.